the summertime, it felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Welcome to Everything Sparkle. How are you, David?
I'm good, Sparkle. Thanks for having me. How have you been?
I've been good. Tell us about all the different things you do, because you do like everything.
I don't do everything, but I've kind of got a vast background. Obviously, you and I share an interest in fitness. That's more of a passion. And at times it's kind of been a bridge between careers or a secondary income in when I had other things as my primary revenue source. I was a fireman for a long time, as you know. I threw parties in Fresno. I'm a networker. Turned into sales. I opened a restaurant at one point. Sold cars and did very well in the car industry, and that kind of brought me back to what I'm focusing on now. In the car industry, one of the things I prided myself on was trying to get anybody that could not get financing for a vehicle. If everybody else turned you down, come see David. And I would be the guy that wouldn't just throw your credit report in the trash, and I'd look at it and try and find a solution. So with that in mind, one of the guys that actually I helped get a job years ago, he started a company in Houston called Clarity Credit Pros, and he figured out a way to remove derogatory information from people's credit.
Really?
Now, yes. There's a bunch of YouTube stuff on it, and that's not my expertise, but I realize the value of it. Just being honest, Sparkle, I bought a house in Fresno in 2006, and I bought it at the top of the market, paid $330,000, and I got one of those terrible, adjustable rate loans. And 2 years later, when it was time to refinance or my payment was going to balloon, my house was only worth $180,000. So I had nowhere to turn, and basically the result of that was I had bad credit for 7 years. My house went into foreclosure. I lost it, and my credit report was crap for 7 years. And I could have done a bankruptcy, but chose not to. And, I made money, and I survived through it. But if anybody had told me about me during that period of time and a way out of that mess, I'd have thrown a couple $1,000 to fix my credit report a million times over. And if I didn't have it, I'd have found the money. So that's what I do now. I give everybody kind of a second chance, and I don't change their debt. I can't change debt. I'm not a magic man, but I can remove negative items from somebody's credit report.
And that's all legal?
It is legal. Yeah. Yes.
I assumed it was. You're talking about. I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. There's some tricks to it. We basically play chess with the credit bureaus. What everybody doesn't understand, you're familiar with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They have reports, and you can look at them at Credit Karma or Experian.com or whatever. But there's also 9 other companies that are data furnishers. Okay, and those data furnishers, they buy and sell your data. Okay, and what we do upon signing a customer up day one is we help them exercise their legal right to freeze their data. All right. So I'm so-and-so, I live at this address, I want my data frozen. Okay. And it takes a few weeks for that process to happen. And after it happens, we help them dispute their negative items on their credit report. And guess what? The person that they verify the information from can't share their data, can't confirm the negative items on their credit report, and by rule, they have to remove it from your credit report. It's really kind of a simple process. It's basically just playing chess with the credit bureaus, knowing what their moves are.
So how much does this cost if I wanted you to look at my credit and do all this for me?
It just depends on how much damage you have.
Okay, so it's like per item you remove, or what? I just to look at it. What's ballpark?
So say you have one item that needs to be removed. just so you kind of understand our process, it gets cheaper the more you have because there's some administrative costs, believe it or not. Well, and let me
So you
explain.
want to have bad credit?
No, not that. What I'm saying is, we send out nine letters right out the gate, certified mail. So there's $100 of cost and some time just in the outset, whether you have one negative item or you have 10. There's some costs involved. So one negative item might cost $200 or $300. 5 of them might cost 800 or 1,000. Worst case scenario, $2,000. We can pretty much take care of anybody.
That's good. I mean, it's good to have a ballpark because I think everyone's just kind of like, what do I do? And what about do you work with? Because I actually have this comedy show that I do with my friend Patrick Pollock, and his business is he gives insurance to people with horrible driving records. Right. Do you work with people like that? So when people come to you for one problem, do you direct them to people that can help them with other problems in the same way?
So there's obviously some things that the people that are coming to me have in mind going forward. In other words, one of the things that I talk to each one of my clients about is, what's your goal here? Where do you want to, when I'm done with you, what do you want to do next? Because unfortunately, credit's one of those subjects, and I've said this so many times. We should have a credit and a tax class in high school. Like, everybody should know how to do their taxes and learn how to manage your credit. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. We're really, and investment. I actually had talked about that with the other guys. So investment, those 3 things. Yes, I'm all with you.
Yeah. We can skip geometry, trigonometry, and calculus. And as soon as everybody figures out algebra, let's go into personal finances. I'm serious, because that's right. Stuff, but that being said, I've learned that in order for my customers to really have success, I can clean up their credit. I can add things to their credit that boost their score. But unless I hold their hand, and we'll talk about that. Don't worry, I saw your eyes perk up. Unless I hold their hand and show them what to apply for and when, step by step, chances are people are going to screw it up again. Okay. Right. They'll waste inquiries. They'll apply for credit cards they're not qualified for, et cetera, et cetera. So knowing how specific this whole subject matter is, I start with people that don't apply for anything. I'll help you apply for everything that you want in the short term. And once your credit's clean and your score's above 700, I'm going to direct you to credit card companies that have pre-qualification applications so that you don't have to waste inquiries. All right. We only get a few of those before our score starts going down. So they're precious and they stay on for 2 years. So after that, I tell them, don't apply for anything. After they're done, I will send them links to credit cards that they should qualify for, but also that have a pre-qualification process. And I tell them, if you're not pre-qualified, don't apply. Don't waste the inquiry. And I got 10 other pre-qualification things that we can go through too. And then also, knowing the car industry, there are certain companies that are more apt to work with in profiles, because after their bad is gone, a lot of times there's not a lot left, leading to the point that we talked about before. Authorized user trade lines. Okay, Sparkle. Here's an example. You're in a relationship. You go to the car dealership and you tell the car salesman, look, I'm about to buy a house in my name, and I don't want any debt on my credit profile because I need it for my DTI. So we want to put this car in my man's name. And they look at both reports and they're like, well, you're a 750, Sparkle, but he's only a 600. So what I would do if I was your salesman is say, hey, did you realize this 10-year-old Chase card that you have, perfect payment history, $10,000 limit, zero balance? Did you know that you can add him as an authorized user to that credit card, and he will get all 10 years of history for that? He will get the benefit of that $10,000 limit, the zero max, and it will affect his usage. Say he's 50% of his usage on his little credit cards. Guess what? Now he's got 10,000 on the limit side, zero on the balance side. So his 50% usage for his little cards, it just shrunk down to 10 in a matter of less than 30 days by simply you adding him to his card.
Wow.
So we can do that for our children. I've got a video on my Facebook how you can start your children, your young adults credit out with the 700. Add them on your oldest credit card with the low balance, high limit. 18-year-olds an instant 700. They can skip all the building of the $500 credit cards with $100 annual fee,
Right.
and
Oh my
30%
God.
interest. So basically, I've just used years of looking at credit reports, knowing how different things affect one another. And for those people that don't have a spouse or don't have a parent that will add them to a credit card within this industry, that's a revenue stream. And I have those things available for sale.
Nice. And then, okay, so I've been getting, and now we're going into you're doing my therapy. I have been paying car payments for like about 2 years on this one car, and then I've been getting, a letter in the mail saying you can shrink your payments down, yada yada yada. I should be able to because the payments were a little bit high, and I've never been late, so I was thinking about shrinking it. Do I call you to look at it and be like, should I go this route? Should I to get the payments lower? Are you the person I call for that?
Yeah. Basically, what I tell all my friends and all of my customers is anytime you're going to make a major purchase, car, boat, house of any kind, even after I've got you cleaned up and whatever, let's just have a 5-minute conversation. Let's look at your report. What we want to do anytime we apply for something major is make sure our score is maximized. Okay. And that can be, those trade lines can come into play at that point. Say you're at 50% usage, boom, I throw you on a $20,000 Amex, your usage drops, your score jumps up 30 points. Rather than you pay $10,000 in credit card debt for $500, I just fix your usage problem, your score pops up, and guess what? You just saved 1 or 2% interest on your major purchase, and $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 in interest over the life of a car loan, or $20,000 to $50,000 over the life of a home loan.
Wow. So you do it all with everything, credit for everything.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier too about as far as having other people. I have certain car people that I send people to after they're done with me. I have loan officers that I'll send people to after they're done with me. I have realtors that I'll send people after they're done with me. Basically, I just want to always make sure that every angle of anything that my customer base has to do is with the trusted source and with somebody that I know they're in good hands with, so that things get done correctly.
Do people come to you for everything? Like you're like, hey, I just had to bail my friend out of jail. What card do I use? What do I do? Are you the go-to guy, or are you trying to be like, no, I don't do that?
Sparkle, my phone's on 19 hours a day, and I answer it 99% of the time. So I have this nurturing, like big brother kind of vibe to me. I'll kind of bend over backwards to answer anybody's question. I haven't heard that one yet, but I have gotten a lot of calls from like all my buddies that are done really well in life and have great scores. Those guys, they don't even really know how they got their scores. They just know that they were always taught you just pay all your bills on time. And those guys, interestingly enough, are like, hey, bro, I'm like an 805. What do I do to get a better score? And, there's some magic to that. But in reality, typically the answer is don't open any new accounts, keep your balances low, and don't apply for stuff. Ultimately, at the end of the day, once you get above 750, it's really just bragging rights after that. And the only real way to get up to an 8, not only way, but the traditional route of getting into the 800s is age. Your age of accounts growing, your balance is staying low, not applying for new stuff. And your home loan maturing, your car loans maturing, getting paid off, and then continuing that perfect payment history.
Okay, so can we just come with you? Like I said, I'm getting the mails about they want to lower my card payments because I evolved that. What if I wasn't getting the mail and I wanted to start looking at everything and refinancing everything? Would I come to you and be like, okay, shouldn't this be lower? I've been paying this for a long time. Can we make this call? Can we make that call?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can kind of look at your score and what percentage rate that you're in your current loan, and I've got a good idea as to whether you would qualify for a better loan somewhere, and even potentially point you in the right direction to some places that would do that for you based on whatever your specifics are. Some banks are more sticklers about proving income. So if you're self-employed or you're a trainer or a beautician or something like that, you get a lot of cash. There's all kinds of variables. Ultimately, what I was always good at with the car industry is looking at a credit report, understanding who was in front of me, all of the variables of that person, whether they have 1099 or W-2 or whatever their situation is, and immediately figuring out which one of my banks that I want to send them to so that I can get an approval, get the deal done without hurting their credit. Most car companies, you go there and you apply, they send you to 10 companies immediately because they're lazy and they just want to get an approval. You get your brand new shiny car. 2 weeks later, you look at your credit report and like, what? I've got 8 new inquiries from 8 companies I didn't know anything about. And I can even get those off too, by the way. You didn't authorize those. It's not legal. They didn't have your permission, and we can get those removed.
Wow. Okay, so David, did you help people from all over the United States, or are you just local? Tell us where you can help anybody.
Well, like you said, I've done a bunch of different stuff, and the cool thing about this company is that it's the first thing that I've ever been able to sell that I can sell to anyone, anywhere. If you're a personal trainer in Fresno, your client base is in Fresno. If you own a restaurant in the South, the only customers that are come eat at your place are going to be locals or travelers. If you're throwing parties in San Francisco, chances are people aren't going to travel very far to go out on a Friday night. So this is the first thing in my lifetime of all the things that I've done just in the last 3 or 4 days. Well, just in the last 2 days, I've spoken to people in Baltimore, Maryland, New York, Texas, Alabama, Florida, and throughout California.
Well, that's good because people from all over watch the show, so they're going to be like, they were going to be sad if you weren't accessible.
No, absolutely. I can help anybody in the United States. Absolutely.
So is this just your business, or do you work with other people?
I'm an independent contractor, but I work for a company, Clarity Credit Pros. The owner of the company is a buddy of mine that I helped get a job in the car business, and so we had a friendship and some mutual respect. I knew he was a good salesman. He knew I was a good salesman. One of my family members actually had some issues with their credit, and that's how this relationship rekindled. I sent one of my brothers who had a tough deal with COVID financially, and he went through this process for my buddy's company, and he went from like a 500 to a 750 in a few months, and that was kind of enough to get my attention. And as soon as I called to thank him, I was like, man, what do I owe you? You took care of my brother. He goes, no, I was just trying to get your attention. I want you to come work for me. So that's what it was all about.
Wow. So people can do this if they wanted to get into the business. Then they can.
I mean,
you can mentor people in the business.
We are growing exponentially. Absolutely. And I want to talk just briefly about traditional credit repair, Sparkle, because like many, the business model of credit repair, and a lot of people have had bad experiences. While I was selling cars, I sent a lot of people through that process. And some people get better results than others, but basically their business model is to build as big a clientele as possible and to get $100 a month and keep you paying $100 a month for as long as you can until you figure out, hey, I'm not going to get very much results. And a year or two later, you're like, why am I sending these people $100? They haven't done anything for me in 6 months. Like, this is a waste of time. I've got 2 things in a year, and you get out of it. We are still on a daily basis trying to break the mold and just like the general consensus thought of what credit repair is, and explaining to people like, look, what we do doesn't take that much time. It's a 90-day process for us. We have a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you're not satisfied after 90 days, we will give you a 100% free refund. We haven't had to give anybody a refund yet. We make people happy. We get results fast. And like I said, for my customer base, I'm trying to educate everyone, understanding that the lack of knowledge that's out there on the subject, and trying with my correspondence throughout the process to help them understand how to be successful going forward, not repeat the same mistakes.
So do you offer like little seminars too, or just some online stuff? What's kind of some stuff you've been doing to help?
I don't know. I don't know what the future holds as far as that. Right now, I'm just trying to help as many people as I can. And it's my full-time job, and I'm making plenty of money for my paid customers. So when people reach out and they just need some advice, I just give them free advice. At a certain point that my time is limited and I can't do that, that may be an angle that I do, or try and tackle larger audiences all at once so I can address, kind of the themes that everybody's wanting to know. But right now, consultations are free. I'll look at your report. I'll give you some advice. I'll tell you what things I offer that will help you. And if all we get out of it is some free advice and point you in the right direction of some things that help you, there's no ill will on my part. I'm happy to help anybody I can.
So what are some of the biggest problems you see? What are a lot of mistakes that we're making that we don't know we're making, besides what you said about going to the dealership and then they're racking up what are the other things that we're doing that?
A lot of it is, like I said, lack of education. Usage is a big thing. People don't understand that. So if you get a credit card and it's got $1,000 limit, okay, $1,000, did you know that the moment you use $101 that your credit score is going to go down? It's going to go down. At 101, you break past that 10% mark, your score goes down. And, that's the way it is. But when you're first starting out, nobody understands that. So that's like just looking at a credit. People don't even know how to look at their credit report. They don't know what they're looking at. But that's a common thing. And then most of the mistakes that people make is they just go through tough times. They get too much credit before they can really afford it. They extend themselves too far, and then their job changes or a relationship change or whatever, economy shifts one way and their income changes. And guess what's the first thing to not get paid? Everybody tries to pay their rent or their mortgage. Everybody tries to pay their car. But, at a certain point, you buckle down and tighten the straps, and whatever is on the outside of that necessity list, it's neglected. So it could be a hospital bill that was unforeseen. It could be a utility bill from a roommate situation in an apartment that I thought he had it, they thought I had it, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just young people mistake stuff. But yeah, all kinds of things. And a lot of times too, when people get to a point where, one thing's going to go and their credit's going to get beat up over it, they just throw in the towel, max everything out and say, screw it, so.
Well, what are some things that we can do? What's some advice you have? That was really good to say about going onto someone else's card and everything. What are some other little pointers that you can give us?
Well, like I said, we'll enhance on that just real briefly. If you have a young adult, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and they don't have any credit yet, just real briefly while we're on this show, this is what you want to do. You want to look at your credit report and find your oldest credit card with your highest limit and your lowest balance, okay? You're going to add that child as an authorized user. When you do that, your credit card company is going to give you an option to get them their own credit card. I don't suggest that. Don't hand your credit card to your young adult and let them go wild. That's not the point. You're doing this just for the sake of credit building, okay? So if they have no score, no credit, nothing on their profile, one positive account with good payment history, a high limit and a low balance will make them an instant 700, okay? So as soon as, and that'll hit immediately, the next time that your credit card company, after you add them to it, reports to the credit bureau, which is a few days after your payment is due each month, within a week or two of that transaction, it'll pop onto their credit report and they'll have a score. Now, immediately following that, that's when you have a new opportunity to build that young adult's credit with options you didn't have prior to that transaction. When they had no score, they had limited options. Now that they have a decent score, their options have grown, okay? So now all of a sudden, the Capital Ones of the world, the Chases of the world, are options for your young adult. So they can get a little bit better card that has lower interest, doesn't have an annual fee, has a little bit higher limit, and also offers some rewards, okay? I suggest 2 credit cards. And if you're your kids, if they're not capable of handling it, and guess what? Keep a heavier hand on their shoulder and make sure they're doing the right things, even if you have to take the credit cards away from them. One thing I always tell parents is look at it like this from an advantageous standpoint. If your kids have good credit and have the option to borrow money from a bank, that just means that they're a heck of a lot less likely to need to borrow money from you. So you get something out of it here. You know what I mean? Like straight up, if you teach your kid how to be financially independent, they're going to pick up the phone a lot less times in life and go, hey, Mom, I need some help.
Oh, yeah.
Am I right? We live in a day. We live in a day where we have to keep these kids like taken care of until they're 25 and through college and start a career. So guess what? Set them up for success at 18.
So what's one of the worst things that you can't really work your way out of? What's something that you can't work a little magic on that you're like, stay
Child
away
support.
from this?
Child support. Child support. Matter of fact, I talked to a client yesterday, and he's building his credit, but like he is in such a disaster mess because he doesn't have a whole lot of credit. And for whatever reason, I didn't ask for details. I operate in a no judgment zone. I see a bunch of disasters on a daily basis, and I don't, I try and make them as comfortable as possible because it's a sensitive subject. Nobody likes to know my credit sucks, right? So I didn't ask for details. What I told him is, I can't help you with this. What you need to do is call your county office and set up an appointment and go sit down. And he had some kind of extenuating circumstances to where they were going through a case and battling. And then as soon as the case was settled and final, it was caught up in current. But during that process, the payment history just looked bad. Okay. And I don't know the details. What I told him is, you're going to have to go figure that out and beg, borrow, do whatever it needs to try and get that cleaned up. What people don't realize is child support is actually reported to the credit bureau. If you are involved in a child support situation with the county of your residence, your payment history is sent to the credit bureaus on a monthly basis. And as long as you make a payment every month, you will stay current. Even if you're behind on the total that you owe, as long as you make a payment, you'll have perfect payment history. But your balance that you are behind will show on your credit report as well.
Wow, okay.
So I've seen some dads that don't look like very good dads on paper. And some of them, there's an excuse or a reason or whatever. And again, no judgment zone. But that's something that is going to follow you, and I can't help you with.
So, David, what's your credit score now?
An 809.
Wow.
Well, it might have gone up. Hold on. Let me see. Something like that. Yeah.
What was the worst it was when it was bad?
Low 500s. Yeah. Yeah, it was bad.
So what's the most you've seen somebody really help out of really digging them out of a hole?
I had just a recent success story. We had a gal that she was like a 560 or a 570. And we added her to one of those trade lines. She didn't have a whole lot. Those trade lines make a big difference if you don't have a whole lot of credit. But we got one negative thing removed and added her to one credit card. She popped 150 points in like 30 days.
Wow.
So she went from like upper fives to lower sevens in 30 days. So she was pretty happy.
Wow. So cool. So you make things happen kind of fast. That's really awesome.
Some of the things that we do, like the derogatory stuff, our process, we freeze people's data the first 21 days, start the dispute process at day 21. And really it's up to the credit bureaus case by case basis. Sometimes they make decisions on on some of those accounts faster than others. Sometimes they exercise all of their 30 days and even then some before they make a decision. So as I'm doing 20, 30, 40 clients simultaneously, it doesn't go in order. The first person that I signed up in a month is not necessarily the first person to get results a month or 2 or 3 later. I'm actually surprised sometimes because I'm like, wait, you just signed up? You're already getting stuff falling off. So there's no absolutes to it. That's why we ask for 90 days. A lot of the stuff that we can do can happen faster, but 90 days kind of gives us 2 opportunities to dispute everything that's on their report.
So how do we get a hold of you to help us out?
My email is david@claritycreditpros.com. My phone number is 415-939-6747. You can find me on Facebook as David Boutte. You can find me on Instagram as Boutte77. The year I was born. I think that's all of them. Yeah.
Awesome. No, this is so helpthis is just great advice. Thanks, Dave. You're just like So much knowledge coming out, and you haven't even been doing this all that long, right?
Well, no, the credit thing is a new thing. This company is a new job, but it's something that I already was highly skilled at. When I
Because
was
of
in
the
the,
car.
yeah, when I was in the car industry, like I said, I would spend a lot of time looking at 50, 60, 100 credit reports in a day. And they were all automatic turndowns that nobody else wanted to look at. And, it's like I felt like not paying attention to those credit reports was like leaving too much chicken on the bone. And there were, if I could get 2 deals out of 100, it was worth the time to do it. Sitting at a desk waiting for my next customer, why not be productive? And I had some success selling cars. I sold more than everybody else. So obviously, it was something that worked. And then not only that, but if you help one person out with bad credit and help them find a car, they got 10 friends that got bad credit that want a car too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that was one thing that I saw, and even some of those people, unfortunately, that I was either sold cars to in that period of time or tried to sell cars to. A lot of those people are still in kind of shaky credit situations that I'm able to help even further than I could back then.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, David.
I
You really
appreciate
helped us out.
I appreciate the invite. And if you have any questions about your personal stuff, like I said, before any major purchase, let's have a 5-minute conversation and make sure you look as good as possible on paper. Okay.
Thank you. I'll definitely come to you, David.
All right. Thank you again.
Welcome to Everything Sparkle. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you today?
I'm good. So I saw your books and you have a lot of stuff out there. When did you get into writing books?
So I actually published my first book back in 2016. So I just recently celebrated 5 years in March. I'm so blessed. I wrote my first book, Master of Ceremonies, which came out in March of 2016. And that was geared towards young men, their kind of teen years, helping them figure out life and, whether they have a father figure in their life or not, just giving them some life skills to be successful. And then from there, during the pandemic last year, I actually released my second and third book on the same day, which are children's books. Their titles are Growing Gents and Girls with Pearls, and they're kind of like brother sister twins, is what I like to call them, because the concepts are essentially identical, except Growing Gents targets young boys and Girls with Pearls targets young girls.
And how did you even get into that and be like, I'm going to be a writer and this is a genre and these are the things I want to do? Because it's really daunting. Tell me how you got into it.
So it's actually a really funny story. Believe it or not, car troubles led me to becoming an author. I had no desire whatsoever. So back in 2015, I ended up getting a flat tire. And long story short, when I put the tire in the shop to get fixed, I actually filled out the maintenance form incorrectly. So what was supposed to be a simple $80 tire repair ended up turning into almost $300 in repairs because I told the maintenance man that I needed a tune-up. So for anyone who knows anything about cars, a tune-up deals with the wiring. So basically, I had a flat tire. I paid for the wiring to also get done. And, just through a conversation with my dad, he was saying to me, why didn't you ask anybody for help if you didn't, know what you were doing? And at the time I was 24 years old. So I'm kind of in that phase in my life back then where I'm like, I think I know everything, but life will show I still don't. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm having these troubles, I actually do have so many people who could have helped me. What do the kids growing up who don't have an active mom, an active dad, an older sibling, or, someone else to help them along, what do they do when they have questions? And that's essentially what led to the first book being made. The children's books, ironically, came from more so, I would say, the community, because after I released my first book, I met a lot of parents who had younger kids, like toddler age, and said, I would love for you to make something for my, younger toddlers. And, the rest was history from there.
Wow. That's crazy. So did you have writing talent though? I mean, I understand you said it was from changing a car, but what made you think, hey, I'm a good storyteller. I'm good at writing. I'm good at this. I mean, was it something that you kind of dabbled in earlier?
Yeah, so believe it or not, my favorite type of writing growing up was always persuasive writing. So I always loved any type of opportunity where I could convince somebody of something, whether that's like writing a letter to a business if I had a bad experience, whether that's applying for a scholarship or some type of application for an opportunity, things where I'm able to essentially tell a story without filter. I felt like I've always shined the best. So with my first book, Master of Ceremonies, even though it provided a lot of life skills to, young boys, I was able to tell a lot of my story. So it takes those gems that I want to share and it couples them with the experiences that help me learn the gems too. So for example, one of the chapters talks about friendship and why having good friends is really important to being successful. But within that, I share my own stories and trials and tribulations about friends that I had, and what I learned from those experiences. So definitely, I would say my goal as a writer is always to make a reader feeling something. If you read it and you go about your day as though you never read it, I feel like I've done a good job. But if you read what I've written and you say, wow, as a result of that, I'm going to start maybe looking at it a little bit differently, then I know I've done my job.
So are these self-published or were you with a publishing house?
So all three were self-published. The first one, Master Ceremonies, came through a self-publishing company called Ex Libris, and Growing as well as Girls with Pearls, I actually went through Amazon. I want to try something a little bit different.
So what's the difference? Tell us, because I'm always so curious about how this all works.
Sure. So with Ex Libris, because it was my very first time, I actually got recommended to them through a former supervisor who was an author as well. And they help you with so many more things behind the scenes. So, for example, they purchase the ISBN number for you. For listeners who may be unfamiliar, ISBNs are essentially like the barcodes for books. But they purchase it for you. They designed a website for you. They do all the marketing material. So they give you business cards and they kind of set you up for success. They do rounds of editing for you. Whereas with Amazon's system, you manage 100% of that. They essentially kind of just print the book for you almost and put it on their website. But in terms of any edits, any ISBNs, anything that you need to do to put that book together or even market that book, that is 100% on you. So the reason I made the switch from Ex Libris to Amazon is because I felt more comfortable in myself and my process. Obviously, because Ex Libris is doing more, they want more of the royalty rate. They also charge you more to get started. Whereas, yes. So with Amazon, there actually was no charge. So I didn't pay anything to, upload the book. So again, I take over 100% of the responsibility. So if something is wrong in the book or with the book, I can't come back and say anything to Amazon. The only thing I remember being different, which was really cool, Amazon has this really cool feature where they do a digital scan and then they have like a representative who also will double check it just to make sure that, like, more so from a printing aspect, things aren't getting cut off or something is wrong with a margin. But that's about it. Like if there's any typos in your book or anything, that is 100% on you. Whereas Ex Libris is more hands-on. So that's kind of the major differences there.
And then what about book tours? When you were with the first one, not Amazon, do they help you with that, kind of like garnish your own, like how to plan your own book tours? Because that's how you sell a lot of books, right?
Right. So in the ideal world, that's what I thought going into it. But the truth is that you really do push a lot of it yourself. I will say that Ex Libris did a great job of providing resources. They had a lot of articles and pages, and they send you a lot of emails with things that you can kind of get involved with. But it's not an automatic part of doing a book through them. These are like add-on features that you would have to pay additional money to be a part of. So I'll be very honest with you. A lot of what I learned on this journey was self-taught or people that were very close to me. I have a mom whose background was previously in the music industry, so I leaned on her a lot, even though I'm not a singer. But the world of kind of promoting music and books have some overlap there. So, I leaned on my mom for a lot of those experiences on ways to market my books better. But learning how to draft my own contracts, learning how to design a lot of my own materials, learning how to negotiate, even get my books in certain stores. All of that I kind of had to do on my own. And that's why I felt comfortable going over to Amazon, because I'm like, well, if I have the skills to do these things myself and I'm seeing the success on my own regard, why am I paying somebody else all of this additional money for things that I can do myself?
And how do you get it into these stores? I'm sorry I'm asking all these questions, just really fascinates me.
So for me, the biggest thing that I did was just had a conversation at first and, explain my book, what they were for, why I felt like they could benefit the community. And then the ironic part is,
if you walk into Barnes and Nobles, who do you talk to? The manager? Or they get you how do you even do that?
Yeah, so Barnes & Noble has a person called CRM, which stands for a community resource manager. And essentially that's the person who organizes the book signings, the book talk, anything that they do with the store. So usually they're your first point of contact for much of anything through the store. And I've been blessed in the sense that not only is my book on the Barnes & Noble website, but in one physical store site in Virginia, they carry the physical book, which is a huge honor because, as you know, there are millions of books in the world. So there's obviously limited shelf space. You can't put every single book that was ever created in every bookstore. So, for a place to be physically carrying a book is a huge honor. But just really building those relationships is a great part. And I always tell new authors, the art of storytelling is so important. Not to be overly dramatic or anything like that, but you just want to make people feel a sense of connection to what it is that you're saying. That's what usually determines whether you get an opportunity or you don't. So for me, what I always try to do is when things don't work out for me, I try to go back and get the education. So I remember I've always wanted an opportunity in Barnes & Noble's in New York. And when I reached out in 2017, I reached out to 4 places and all 4 told me no, right? So I actually emailed them back and I was like, let me do something different here. And I said, well, can you tell me what I did wrong? What should I have done better that would have given me the opportunity compared to not giving me the opportunity? And they all wrote back with really amazing feedback as like, what are the best times of year to reach out? What are the keywords to put in? All of those different things. So I tried to take those experiences of things that didn't work out for me and apply them to future opportunities.
That is so fascinating. Oh my gosh, Jonathan, you're awesome.
Thank you.
So let's say you get it in Barnes and Nobles. Do you have to go to every single Barnes and Nobles you want to sold at, or can you go to one in California and then they give you multiple stores? Because that's a lot of work if you have to go to every store you want to have it sold at. How does that work?
So unfortunately, it is what you mentioned, that store by store piece. And I think that's more so until you probably get a bigger name. If I became like some global public figure, I'm sure they would just order it for the stores because I'd be a little bit more in higher demand. But I think for now, it's that individual piecemeal system. And that's okay. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to make those connections and things like that.
Right. That's a lot of work. I mean, do you get an agent sometimes to do it? Would you talk to some people that have an agent, or does an agent not really help on where to sell?
You know what? That's a great question. So that's actually something I've been considering. Right now, I do not have an agent. Everything that I have secured, from the TED Talks that I've done to the books in my stores to the book talks that I've secured, everything I've essentially generated either through my own personal connections or through just reaching out to people. But I've been really thinking about getting an agent because I know that they would be able to get me into places that maybe I haven't been able to get myself into yet. So that's just something that I've been really kind of marinating on. I've asked a couple friends and I've been getting some mixed reviews. I think the part where I'm still a little bit hung up on is that because I've been able to do so much on my own, it's like, do you really want to pay someone, again, going back to what I shared with that first book, to do things that you already do? However, I do know the benefit of an agent really is to help you out, because most entrepreneurs like myself also do work full time. But on top of that, it's great to have another set of hands, another mind, another set of eyes on these projects that you're doing. So most likely I will end up getting one. It's just a matter of finding the right person.
So, who are some of the writers that have inspired you and that you've talked to through this process?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. So believe it or not, as I shared before, my former supervisor, her name is Lynetta Lee. She actually still works at my job. She's just in a different position. So just a quick backtrack. I actually full-time in higher education at the first degree granting HBCU, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. And there I work with young males, mentoring them, helping them out and things of that nature. So my boss, Dr. Lee, she actually serves as our campus vice president, but she was one of the first authors I got to talk to. And she's the one who, let me know who I should go through and how to do those different things. So I would lean on her a lot for support early on. As I was getting ready to release my book, one of my colleagues in a different department, his name was Eric Webb, he was very helpful with talking to me about that marketing piece. And I remember something that he said that will always stick to me. He said, believe it or not, book sales will not most likely be the way that you generate the most of your money. It will actually come from book talks. So, just really leaning on him on creative ways to get myself in front of people, in addition to just selling books, but actually talking. So I would say those were the two. Kind of in my spare time when I'm reading, I love self-help books. I'm reading, well, I've actually read it a couple years ago, but I'm kind of rereading it now. There's a book called The E-Myth, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work by Michael Gerber. Probably one of the most helpful books you will ever read for any entrepreneur of any industry, because it really goes through why business fail. It goes through why customers don't come back. It goes through so many of those different things. So that's probably been my favorite book to read. But yeah, I try to pull from everyone that I come in contact with. I think back to this experience in 2017. I was at a multi-author signing where it was multiple authors, and I was probably the newest one there. And even just seeing how people set their tables up for book sales and book signing was like, wow, okay, people bring candy, people have large display boards and fold-out banners and all of these different things. So, I kind of acted like a kid in the candy store and just like, let me learn from you. And again, the next time I do it, I'm going to be better. And now I try to teach too.
Wow, that's a lot that you're doing and juggling. So what's the next book? Because you have the young adult novel. Is it considered a novel?
No, so it's actually really short. One thing I try to be very mindful of, I know that young guys really don't like to read long books, especially self-help books. So the first one is actually, yes, I always try to pay attention to my audience. But that book is less than 100 pages, actually. Most of it, even though it does have content, also has work, kind of worksheets and different activities they can do too. The children's books obviously are way shorter than that, even still. The fourth book will be probably close to 100 pages. It's called Journey to 100, and it speaks about my life over the last 2 years. So for anyone who follows me on social media, check me out at AuthorJon, by the way. I have recently been on a health journey since July of 2019, where I've lost over 120 pounds. So as a result,
oh my gosh.
yes, crazy. If you go to my page and you look at, before and now pictures, you're like, whoa, some people always tell me it's almost like two different people sometimes that they're looking at. But, the number one question I get is, what did you do to lose the weight? How did you do it? How long did it take? What did you eat? What types of exercise? So many questions stem from that. So I'm writing a book, that's going to talk about my life over the journey, what changes I made, what I learned from making the changes, even why I started. And the hope is that it'll inspire other people, even if their goal is not necessarily to lose weight, but they just want to make lifestyle changes in certain areas. It goes over even how to shift a mindset to be able to accomplish those things. So that actually is book number 4. And then after that, I want to kind of get started on book number 5 as well.
That is just like one thing after another, and it's also different. And that's huge, actually, losing 120 pounds. How long did that take?
So I did it from July 4th, 2019 through April 23rd, 2020. So I lost the first 100 in 295 days. So pretty much 10 months. And the other 20 has been just, gradually. I did that probably around, I'd say, August of 2020 as well. So I really wanted the final 20 pounds for me was more of like a willpower challenge because you hear all these stories of people who lose weight and then they gain it right back. So my thing is, I don't want to be one of those one-hit wonders. I lose weight, everyone's so proud of me, and then you see me again, and I'm right back to where I started. So I said, if you can lose 20 more, then I know that you're really committed to this, and that was my challenge. So recently, I just did a post of April 2020 to April 2021, saying not only am I celebrating that I lost 100 pounds a year ago, but I'm still here, 20 pounds skinnier than that 100 I just lost.
Oh my gosh, you're just so inspiring. And it's funny that you're all over the place. I mean, I'm looking at you have a little girl's book, what, like for a 7-year-old?
Yes.
So you have that, and then you have like an extreme like weight loss. Like, I mean, this is crazy. Like you're all over. I love that. And I don't see many people
Thank
that are
you.
like,
Thank you. Well, I'll be honest with you. For me, I'm in a place in my life where I'm trying to be obedient in what life has for me. I think a lot of times it's great to have your own goals and your own mission and all of that, but sometimes things are presented to you that you just kind of can't pass up. As I shared at the beginning of this, I really didn't have a desire to write a book at all, but God had really put it in my spirit that you should do this. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know too much about it, but I know that if you're going to put this in my spirit to do, I'm going to look into it. And 3 books later, getting ready to release the 4th book, here I am. And the same thing with the weight loss. I think with a lot of things that I really don't have the knowledge base going into it, but I have the desire. And I'm a firm believer that if you have the desire to do something, you'll make it happen. You'll find the right people. You'll find the money. You'll find any barrier that you think is holding you back. You'll make it work. So my book, my weight loss, everything that you see me do is a living testament, not necessarily of a person who had the skill set starting out, but a person who had the desire to figure it out.
okay, Jonathan. So I have to ask. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. But what's your day job?
So I work at, as I was sharing, I work at Lincoln University in higher education, which is, again, the first degree granting historically Black university. I work with young men and a couple young ladies as well, but kind of
Where
serving
is
as a
this?
mentor.
Where's it
So
at?
it is in between where Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is and Baltimore, Maryland. But we're like,
Okay.
we're in Pennsylvania, but we're kind of sandwiched in between Baltimore and Philly.
Okay.
So yeah, so I do a lot of work with the youth and mentoring and things like that, which is really cool. I run my own office there called the Office of Male Achievement, which is our campus Male initiative, which targets male students. Studies have always shown that Black men in college have a really hard time. So our school is trying to be more intentional about helping them in terms of providing resources, providing support, and programs to make them like being at the school. Since we are predominantly African American at the school, it's just, really important that we make sure that those who we have feel comfortable while they're there. So I do a lot of that. And it's anything, I've been up till 3 in the morning having conversations with students who are having girl problems, financial problems, home problems, school problems, all types of issues. Just really listening, being that kind of big brother listening ear and helping them figure out like what they can do to get to their next part of life.
So what are some of those challenges and why? What have you come across as why there's those challenges that exist?
So I think a lot of it really starts at home. It's hard sometimes, just being young in general is very tough because social media, pressures from friends and just different things. But, if home isn't really the best, then it makes it hard sometimes to focus. So, for example, some of my students don't have a relationship with either one parent or both parents. So that can be really tough. I have a lot of young men in college who have never met their father or don't have the best relationship. So while you're up at school trying to focus and do these different things, you then have these issues from home that are kind of still linked. It's kind of the same thing how if we have jobs and we're at work, but we're thinking about other stuff, it kind of affects our productivity at work, it's the same thing for them at school. So that's where I come into play to really like help them. Sometimes it's just having conversations on forgiveness. I talk a lot about forgiveness, forgiving those who you feel like have hurt you in your past, or we talk a lot about trying to be better. Some of my students suffer with anger management and they get very upset very quickly. So we talk about like critical thinking and maybe what's the best way to have a conversation with somebody who's getting on your nerves. We talk a lot about.
I can take that class.
We talk a lot about what is the big thing I talk to them about. I talk to them a lot about like that critical thinking and asking for help. As men, sometimes we can be very prideful and we can be struggling,
right.
And we won't say anything to anyone. We'll let it just get really bad, the flood, the water's all over the floor, and then we're like, okay, there's water everywhere. I guess I need help now. So trying to get them to a place where it's like, hey, come talk to somebody if you feel a little today, or whatever, like I'm here. So all of my students pretty much have my cell phone number. I try to make myself very accessible so that we can talk through it. I always tell them you don't have to go through anything by yourself that you don't want to. So, stop by the office or give me a call, or it doesn't have to be anything super formal. Like I've had students who have talked to me about major life issues while we're playing video games together. Just giving them that sense of comfort and safe space is really been a blessing.
So what was your upbringing like? Because, you mentioned your mom and she seemed successful and you're mentoring all these people, you're writing children's books. I mean, what's kind of your drive? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Prince George's County, Maryland. I'm about 10 minutes from Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia area. And I was raised by my mom and my dad, who have been married now over 35 years.
I love that.
Yeah, it's such a blessing. My dad, who actually just turned 70 last week, he's such a major influence on my life. Both of my parents have really kind of instilled always not only hard work in me, but kind of doing the right thing. They're both very honest people, very giving. And I would say I've learned more from what I saw them do than anything they've ever told me. Just watching how they help people, whether that's giving money, giving time, giving advice, allowing family to stay here who's trying to get back on their feet. They've always kind of put themselves out to make sure that others get better. So I very much have adopted a lot of those same principles and philosophies. I like to think that we're really close. We have a lot of fun. And, even though I work in a different state, every time I'm home, we always have a blast. Just hung out with them for like 3 hours today. I usually talk to my dad every day or so, my mom every couple of days, but I really have a great family. I have an older brother, actually, so I'm the youngest of 2 sons. And my brother is kind of like the polar opposite of me, but I think is really like a good blend there. So I'm much more of the like structure person. I love routine. I love, all things related to schedules and details and stuff like that. And my brother is very much so like, we'll figure it out when it happens. And I think that's always good for me to see, because everything in life doesn't go planned. So, sometimes the trick is when you're a very kind of like detailed person, the moment that something doesn't happen the way you plan for, you can find yourself very flustered. But, it's good to have those balanced people who teach you like, it's going to be okay and all of that stuff. So, like I said, I try to pull from everybody that I come in contact with, and I absolutely love my family. So.
That's such a good story. So what does your brother do though? I mean, you told me he's a little bit all over the place, but what's his job?
Sure. So he actually has done a little bit of everything as well. So believe it or not, prior to what he's doing now, he was actually in the club business as a bouncer, and he did that for a number of years. He did some bodyguard work. He actually is good friends with R&B singer Trey Songz. But
nice.
he loves clubs, loves parties, loves all of that stuff. That is not my scene at all, but my brother loves that. So now he actually does work helping people get their businesses off the ground. He does a lot of work supporting new entrepreneurs, and on top of that has been working on something related to like cleaning. Essentially, he's been securing contracts. So if people need houses cleaned, their decks cleaned off, or anything dealing with like interior, exterior cleaning, he's been doing.
Wow, decks cleared off. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm always appreciative to see how he has just kind of flipped things and has been working really hard. We both actually, the one thing that we really do love talking about together, we both invest a lot in the stock market and stuff. That's usually probably our favorite thing to discuss. But like I said, he's an investor. He's a father of two. He's a really great guy. He's a lot of fun. There's, when his name is Julian, whenever Julian is around, it is always a party. As soon as he walks in the room, like the whole room just lights up. So.
Well, we should bring both of you guys on to talk about investment sometime. We did a financial literacy month in February earlier where I had one guy that came in and talked about that. So he was a financial advisor, but I'd love to do that in the future too. I mean, especially it seems like, it's important. And that's another good, that's good. You're teaching the kids that you're mentoring that too. I mean, that's actually, now you know a little bit of everything to teach.
Yeah, and it's cool because like in my job, I kind of look at it like the more life experiences that I get, the more I'm able to share with the kids. So I always teach my newer coworkers that, because, working at a college can be very time consuming. And I tell people, I say the best way to be a good educator is you have to be well-rounded yourself. Like you have to still travel. You have to still keep up with your hobbies. If all you do is your job, you're actually not doing a good job because your job is to teach the students life experience. You can't teach life experience that you yourself don't have. So you have to still do stuff. So for me, even though I work at a college full time, I still run a business. I still try to go on trips and, do these different things.
You did manage to lose 120 pounds.
Yes. And believe it or not, a lot of my students would actually walk with me. So that was fun part too. So in the midst of releasing this fourth book, I have an acknowledgement section with a list of probably 30 names of all of the students who have worked out with me over the course of this journey. So they're actually all going to be featured in the book. So I know they're going to be really excited about that. But,
oh my gosh. So where can we buy all of your books now? Do we have to go to Amazon or can we get it all from your website?
So you can actually do both. My website is www.AuthorJon, and there's a section on there called books. As soon as you click on that, you'll see all the books that are out with the descriptions and the links of.
But it's Jon, Jon, right?
Yes, Jon. So
I want to make sure everyone knows that because,
No problem. I'll spell it out for everyone because I know, believe it or not, it's funny that you say that because with my name being Jonathan, some people spell it with two H's sometimes. So mine is AuthorJon.com, and that's AuthorJon.com.
Well, okay. Everyone knows where to go. We're going to keep up with you, Jonathan. You are like so awesome and so amazing. And I'm so glad you came on my show today.
I appreciate connecting. One of my prayers was to just continue to connect with more progressive minded people. So I'm glad that led us to each other. I think that you're dope and the work you're doing is great too. So I appreciate you. In terms of where anyone can find me, so here we go. I'm so blessed to get ready to say what I'm about to say. My username is literally the same for everything. I lucked out. AuthorJon is on everything, and by everything, I mean Instagram.
And that's
Twitter.
Surprising too.
Yeah, I know, because I'm like, I figured somebody would take something somewhere, and then I would have to come up with all these different variations. You know, you go on Twitter, Instagram, and it's like some places you're the real this, and then others you're this _ that. Like, no, I'm just AuthorJon everything. No underscores, no funny characters or anything. But okay, so I'm AuthorJon on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, Clubhouse, even the PlayStation Network. So literally, if you type in AuthorJon, you can connect with me on any of these spaces and places. I'm always happy to have a conversation, always happy to connect with anyone.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here. Oh, I must confess, dear. Don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do. There's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends. Knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.